Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, afternoon, or evening, or night, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network special report of the seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also don't forget to follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. An instruction in Septemics, a philosophical science. Welcome back, Jim, the author of the book and the program of Septemics, part 15. If you don't have your book, go get it. That way you can, kind of follow along as we go through these instructions of Septemics.
Hi, Paul.
So, and before we jump into it, I'll let you reintroduce yourself again. And
Okay, for those of you who may not know who I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system, called Septemics, and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. And today we're going to discuss some of the content of that book.
Yes, and boy, do we really need to know and understand people. At least some do. So anyway, let's jump into this. We are, and like I said, if you haven't gotten your book, you can find it on Amazon or on the website. Let me actually bring that up. You can go to www.septemics.com and also get a copy of the book. And if you already have it, go to chapter 9, book 2, which is book 1 and book 2 are pretty much in the same book. But this would actually start on page 240, 241, just to help everybody out there. All right, so we are going to touch on the scale of allegiance. Let's see, where are we here? There we go. Scale of allegiance. Take it away, Jim.
Okay, well, this is extremely important. A significant amount of the trouble that goes on with people is because of people going down this scale. Now, allegiance is about loyalty. This is a spiral scale, which means that there is an apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. Level 7 says no allegiance, and level 1 also says no allegiance. But in level 7, it's no allegiance is possible. And in level 1, it's no need for allegiance. See, these are opposite extremes. So when a person is oblivious, there's no possibility of allegiance because he's oblivious of whatever it is. When a person is extroverted, there's no need for allegiance because he's extroverted. So everyone enters this scale at level 1 and descends as the situation deteriorates. This is a quantum scale, meaning there's nothing in between these levels. There is no gradation. So you're either at level 1 or you're at level 2. There's nothing in between. And this is a specific scale, meaning it only makes sense in a context. What is your allegiance toward your wife? What is your allegiance toward your son? What is your allegiance toward your pastor? What is your allegiance toward your country? And so forth. Now, notice it says this scale aligns with the scale of identity. This is one of several scales in which the scale aligns with another one of the scales. Now, think of it this way. Identity is an individual trait. It's in the book of individual scales. Allegiance is necessarily a group activity. There has to be someone or something there for you to have allegiance to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way it manifests as an individual is explained in the scale of identity. And the way it manifests in a group context is explained in the scale of allegiance. Okay, so what are we measuring here? At the right, you have the dotted vertical line, which goes from maximal perception at level 1 to no perception at level 7. Now, notice, you might think it's going to be maximal perception to minimal perception. It's not. At level 7, there is no perception. That is what oblivion is. When a person is oblivious, he has no perception.
Yeah.
And you can't get to infinite perception, but you can get to maximal perception. Now, this is one of the many scales, there are 7 of these, that have an inflow-outflow quality to it. Notice where it says direction, and under direction it says minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. And for those of you who didn't hear the earlier discussions of this, minus means inflow or withdraw, and plus means outflow or reach. Now, in a physical science context, it makes more sense to say inflow, outflow, like the electricity in your AC line. It flows in, it flows out. It flows in, so there's an inflow and there's an outflow. Or the water in your pipes, there's an inflow and there's an outflow. But if you're talking about human beings, it makes more sense to talk about reach and withdraw. In other words, when a person reaches, that's recognizable. He's reaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's an outflow, as opposed to withdraw is an inflow. So this is, by the way, the scale of identity has the same thing, the inflow, outflow. So you start out at level 1, and that's an inflow. Now, it says extroversion. Well, if you're extroverted, you're inflowing. That's what extroversion means. In other words, you are in communication with everything around you. Okay? That's a very positive state. It's an inflow. But then when it deteriorates, it goes down to certain of allegiance, which is an outflow. Certain of allegiance is what people who run groups want. If you're in the military, they want you to be certain of your allegiance to your country, to your unit, and so forth. So this is a level of self-sacrifice. Now, at level 1, there's no self-sacrifice because there's no need for allegiance. See, you have to have something to sacrifice yourself to.
Yeah.
So when you go down to 2, that's when self-sacrifice comes in. A person who's certain of his allegiance. So let's say a person who is a diehard Republican. He gives money at every election. He votes Republican at every election, right? This person will make sacrifices, right? He's losing money when he donates that money. He's losing time when he volunteers, you see? So it's a reach. He's reaching. And that's what they want.
Yeah.
Whatever group you're talking about. if you belong to a church, right? And you're certain of your allegiance to that church and to that religion, you're reaching, you're giving money when the collection plate comes. See, you're trying to talk up this religion. You're certain of your allegiance. But you see, when you go from 1 to 2, your perception deteriorates. You see, extroversion is by definition maximal perception.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go down to being certain of allegiance, your perception is a little less because you are now confining yourself to whatever the thing is that you are certain of your allegiance to.
Yeah.
Okay, now if it deteriorates from that, it goes from an outflow to an inflow. Uncertain of allegiance. This is a person who's indecisive. He can't make up his mind. So indecision is an inflow. A person withdraws into himself. See, if a person, let's say he says, I don't know if I really want to be part of this church, well, then he's not going to be showing up to help them and give them money and everything else, which is at level 2. See, he withdraws. And now he's uncertain of allegiance. Doesn't mean he left. He's just uncertain of allegiance. Now, if it deteriorates, it goes down to a wrong allegiance. Now, the wrong allegiance is from the viewpoint of the group that you have been discussing. So, let's say a guy, he gets married, he's certain of his allegiance to his wife, then they have a hard time, he becomes uncertain. Then the next thing that happens is wrong allegiance. He gets a wrong allegiance from her point of view.
Yeah.
He says, I'm not going to spend all my time and money on this woman. I'm going to go out with somebody else. See, that's enmity. That's an outflow. He's outflowing to this new woman in his life. See, he's not indecisive. He's decided.
Yeah.
See, he's decided, I'm going to have a mistress. There's a decision there.
Mm-hmm.
But from the wife's point of view, it's a wrong allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it continues to deteriorate, it goes down into a lost allegiance. Lost allegiance is not an outflow, it's an inflow. This is where there's betrayal. So, when you lose your allegiance to something, you're out. You have lost that allegiance. You're not part of that group anymore. You have betrayed the group. You have withdrawn into yourself. Then, if it deteriorates more, you go into a state of disorientation.
Yeah.
Where you're in chaos. Now, this is somebody he's gone below betrayal into a point where he has an outflow going, but it's a chaotic outflow.
Hmm.
He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. This is like, a guy who can't even remember who his girlfriends were.
Yeah.
It's just chaos. See? And if it goes further down from there, you go into oblivion, which is no allegiance is possible. How could you have allegiance to something of which you are oblivious? You cannot. You are withdrawn into yourself. So you go into an insane asylum, and there's this guy who's a catatonic and is just sitting there. He's not doing anything. He's not thinking. He doesn't respond. He's oblivious. He doesn't even know you're there. You see, there's no possible allegiance. You cannot get this guy to have allegiance to anything because he's oblivious. He has no perception. That is what catatonia is. So you see, this goes from being in a state of extroversion, which is very positive, meaning you are in communication with everything around you, all the way down to psychosis, which is oblivion, no perception.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about. And this is really important because anytime a relationship deteriorates, it's always because allegiance has deteriorated. There are no exceptions.
Hmm.
So you have a friend. Your friend Joe is your best friend, right? You go to the movies together, you go to baseball games, right? Then something happens. You see, you're certain of allegiance, level 2. So you'll sacrifice. He'll say, hey, can you loan me $10? He says, sure, here, keep it. See? Now, if it goes down to uncertain of allegiance, he says, I don't know if I want to hang out with this guy anymore. He's a pain in the ass. See? He's indecisive. He's withdrawn into himself. Now, if it goes down further, they become enemies. He thinks, this guy's not my friend, he's my enemy. See, that's an outflow. Enmity is an outflow. Now, if it continues to deteriorate, the allegiance is lost. There's nothing there. It's gone. He doesn't even think about it. He's betrayed this person. Now, if it keeps going down, now this guy's getting into serious mental and emotional problems. Then it becomes disoriented. Joe? Joe who? Do I know somebody named Joe? Yeah, he was at your wedding. Remember? No, I don't remember. See, that's disorientation. You're chaotic. You have very little perception.
Yeah.
So you're gradually forgetting about the whole thing as you go down this. So this is something you need to look into. If you're having trouble with someone, you need to pay attention to this. Where is this guy on the scale of allegiance? Let's say you have a company and you have some guys working for you, right? Well, when he first shows up, he's extroverted. He has no need for allegiance. But then you say, well, we'd like to hire you. Okay, so now he's certain of his allegiance, which is what you want. Well, then if it deteriorates, then he becomes uncertain of, I don't know if I want this job. You see?
Yeah.
And it just continues to go down. So that's what this is about. And everybody is somewhere on this scale in every area in which he has allegiance. So a guy has a girlfriend. Relative to her, he's somewhere on this scale. And it's really important for her to know where it is. Because are we dealing with a traitor, which is level 5?
Yeah.
Or are we dealing with an enemy? See, an enemy is not as bad. I mean, we have the Geneva Convention so that enemy combatants are given certain rights. If you surrender to the other side, you give up your weapon, you raise your hands, they then become obligated to feed you, to clothe you, to house you, to give you medical care, and so forth. So, in other words, yes, you're an enemy. From their point of view, it's a wrong allegiance, but the Geneva Convention protects enemy combatants.
Yeah.
Lost allegiance, now this is somebody like the Rosenbergs, who in the 50s gave atomic secrets to the Soviets, for which they were executed. They betrayed the United States. They lost their allegiance to the United States. They then became allies of the Soviet Union, who were our enemies at the time, you see? So then let's say, I don't know what went on with them when they were in jail, but it's entirely possible that they got really disoriented.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go around guys on death row, they're disoriented. It's chaotic, you know? So And if it deteriorates even further, they're just non-compos mentis. That's level 7.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Into oblivion they go.
So
right.
if you are wondering what's going on with this guy who worked for you, or what's going on with my girlfriend, you need to assess them on the scale.
Yeah.
And you can say, Mary Lou, do you have some doubts about us being a committed couple? And see what she says. She might say, yeah, I'm having doubts. See, that means she's at level 3.
Mm.
So you better do something about that right away.
Yeah.
Because she's either going to go down to 4 and become an enemy, or she's going to go back up to 2 and become certain of her allegiance to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to deal with this. Don't think you can sweep this under the carpet.
No.
It cannot be swept under the carpet. Most people make that mistake.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just going on hoping. Well, I'm sort of hoping that if I'm nice to her, she'll like me again.
Yeah.
Not smart. You need to figure out what level is this person at. Is this person a traitor? Is this person an enemy? Is this person simply indecisive? These are big differences. And you need to know which is it.
Yeah. Yeah. Communication is number one thing, especially in a relationship. And I tell you what, you see signs of it. Yeah, you better have that communication quick, unless you also have doubts. I mean, if you also have doubts, then you just lay it all on the table and go off your
That's
merry
right.
way.
Because where are you on this scale and where's your partner on this scale?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have some guy, Fred, who works for you, and you're thinking, I don't know if I want this guy to work for me. Well, you're indecisive, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're uncertain of allegiance. You're getting ready to can this guy. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you are. But where is he? Is he certain of his allegiance to the company? You can tell by spotting the person. Look at the person. What does he say? How does he look? What is his demeanor?
Yeah.
What does he do? You need to know where someone is on this scale, or you're going to be in for a very nasty surprise.
Yep. Yep. Mm.
Next.
Next. All right. Come on. Here we go. All right. Scale of sexuality.
Right. Now, most people are going to look at this and say, what? A scale
Right.
of sexuality? What's that? How can you have a scale of sexuality? Well, there it is, right in front of your face.
Right. There's a scale for everything, man.
There's 35 scales, and most of them are specific scales, which means they apply to multiple contexts.
Mm-hmm.
This is a general scale. So a person he's at a certain level, that's it. Now, once he spots his level, he can move up to a higher level, or he can deteriorate down to a lower level. So this is a spiral scale. There is an apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. Level 7 is no sex. Level 1 is no sex. But at level 7, there's no desire for sex. And at level 1, there's no need for sex. This is a big difference. So you have somebody, maybe he's a drunk or a drug addict, a pauper, a homeless person. He's so far down there, he doesn't even have a desire for sex. It's not even on the radar. See? But then you have the opposite extreme is like somebody who's a guru or a monk or some type of religious hermit
Yeah.
or something. See, he has no need for sex. It's not that there isn't a desire for it, it's that there's no need for it. He doesn't need it.
Hmm.
Okay, now this is a quantum scale. So that means there's nothing in between the levels. Either you're at 3 or you're at 4, period. There's nothing in between. So because of that, you change level abruptly. A guy's at 4, something happens, now he's at 3. So I'll give you an example. You have a guy, right? And he's dating, he's going out. Well, he meets this girl, he falls in love with her, zip, he's right up to level 3. Sex with devotion. That was an instantaneous change.
Yeah.
That was not gradual. Something happens in his mind, and he says, "You're the girl for me." See? And now he's at 3. And also, there's the dividing line at level 4, which exists in many scales between sane and insane. So, level 4 is can have sex. That's kind of a normal level. That's sort of where you find the average person. Now, if he goes up from that, he becomes sane in the area. And if he goes down from it, he becomes insane in the area. So this tells you if you're at level 5, 6, or 7, you are insane in the area of sex. And think about all the different types of sexual insanity there are. They're innumerable.
Yeah.
And if you're above 4, you're sane. So the guy falls in love with this woman. They get married. Sex with devotion, that's level 3. That's very sane. See?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's possible he could go even above that and go to take it or leave it. Now, his wife might not be too thrilled about that because she likes it being at level 3.
Yeah.
But there are people, not too many, who are their attitude about sex is take it or leave it. In other words, if the girl says yes, that's fine. If she says no, that's fine too. You can take it or leave it. And I'm sure you are aware that most people never get to that level. And then at the top, there's no need for sex. It's not even a take it or leave it. It's like, what do I need this for? Now, let's look at level 7. No desire for sex. So this is somebody who is his lack of insight in the area of sex is so great that he doesn't even have a desire for it. It's like just a 0. Now, if he comes up from that, he comes up to perversion. Okay? And there are thousands and thousands of these.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say any more about that other than there's a lot of it around and it's many, many different forms. Now, if the person goes up from 6 to 5, this is not obvious at all. He improves to cannot have sex. He goes from being perverted to at the level of not having sex, cannot have sex. So this is somebody who's totally inhibited in that area. See, he's not perverted anymore. He just can't have it at all.
Yeah.
And if he improves from that, he comes up to like a normal person, which is can have sex. But can have sex is not sane and it's not insane. It's right at the dividing line. And if he moves up from that, it becomes sex with devotion. And if it goes up from that, he can take it or leave it. And at the top is no need for sex. So I think if you pay attention to people, different categories of people, like for example, nuns. Nuns are going to be either at 1 or 2, unless there's something really, really wrong with them and they have no business being in that convent.
Yeah. Yeah, got that right.
But
Or a monk.
there really aren't too many of those, to
Yeah.
tell you the truth. So, when you see all these wild sex things that go on, that's level 7. Pardon me, level 6. Any questions?
No, no. I tell you what, though, it's an interesting observation. This is probably the only podcast, unlike some movies out there that drop the F bomb so many times, you actually broke the Guinness Book of World Records. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
this one's got the word sex has been mentioned more times than anybody. I can count them, but I'll wait till the transcript comes back and then I'll count them.
Is that a bad thing to say? I mean, that's what
No,
the scale is
there's no
about.
such thing as bad publicity.
I can't imagine anybody who doesn't need this scale.
Exactly.
Even if you're at level 1, you need to know, oh yeah, I have no need for sex.
Right?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Next.
So this is actually last but not least for the book. Let's see, what is it? It's the scale of politics.
Yes, and this was the last one that I found, and it's because it's so strange. It's a mirror image. Now, the word politics comes from the word pole. Like the North Pole and the South Pole,
Mm-hmm.
or on a magnet, it has 2 poles, a positive end and a negative end, right?
Yeah.
So politics are inherently conflictual, oppositional, necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a spiral scale, meaning it's easy to mix up level 1 and level 7. They're both extremists, but they're at opposite ends of the poles. And because they're both extremists, it's very easy to mix them up. This is a gradual scale, meaning you go gradually from one level to the next. So let's say a guy's at level 3, and he gradually meanders his way up to level 2. That's how this progresses. And then this is a specific scale, meaning it has to have a context. So when we talk about politics, don't think this only means who's running the government. It can mean all kinds of things. For example, the Catholics fought the Protestants for hundreds of years in Europe. They had brutal wars in which thousands and thousands of people were killed. Okay? That's a type of politics. People say, well, that's not politics, that's religion. Well, it's still a form of politics. But you could also think of it in terms of any type of conflict. Like, for example, I used to be a New Yorker. Well, if you follow baseball, New York had a rivalry with the Red Sox. It was considered the greatest rivalry in baseball for many decades. I mean, Yankees fans and Red Sox fans would get into fist fights. Okay? Those are obviously extremists. So let me explain how this works. If you are a Democrat, a radical Democrat, you're at level 1. You're an extremist. You're the type of person who's going to go out and kill Donald Trump. Now, a little less crazy than that is a partisan protagonist. See, he's still a Democrat, but instead of being an extremist, he's a partisan. In other words, he's authentic. He's not an extremist, he's authentic. He's an authentic Democrat.
Yeah.
Now, if you go down to another level, you become a centrist, which is neutral. You're not a Democrat or Republican. So now, to the Republicans, the extremist Republican would be the radical antagonist relative to the radical protagonist, which is the Democrat.
Yeah.
So you have the protagonists and the antagonists, which is something you find in literature,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Shakespeare. And,
The protagonist is the main person in the story, right? But then there's usually an antagonist, the person who's after him. Or in a movie,
yep.
right? There's protagonists and antagonists. So let's say you go see a World War II movie, right? Where you've got the Nazis. If you're a Nazi, that's a radical protagonist. You're an extremist. You want to exterminate all the Jews.
Yeah.
See? And at the other end will be the radical antagonist, the people who are saying, we are not going to let this happen. We're going to go in there and kill them all. See? So that's the Axis powers.
Hmm.
So let me give you some examples. Ronald Reagan was an authentic Republican. He was not a radical. If you read his speeches, listen to what he said, he was not an extremist. He got along very well with Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the House at the time, who was a Democrat.
Yeah.
And they would make deals. They'd sit down and have a beer and say, now let's talk this over. How can we see? They would make a deal. Because neither one of them was an extremist. Tip O'Neill was an authentic Democrat. Now, John McCain, he was not an authentic Republican. He was a moderate. He was tepid. A lot of people on the Republican side did not like him because he was moderate. The Democrats liked him because he would deal with them. He wasn't taking a staunch position. Now, as far as centrists, the truth is there aren't really many centrists. And the people who are centrists are usually people who don't have a clue. So you say to some guy, who are you going to vote for mayor? He says, is there an election going on?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Those are the ones that are oblivious.
Well, that's a different thing. Relative to politics, he's a centrist. He doesn't he's not voting for you, the person. He doesn't even know there's an election going on. You see, so centrists are usually people who don't have a clue. They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like you ask them about, well, what do you think of Roe v. Wade? What's that? That guy's a centrist. He's neutral. He's neutral because he doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
That's why there are not too many centrists. Now, many of the people who are called centrists are actually moderates. They're tepid. So, for example, Charles Manson was an extremist. He tried to start a race war by killing a whole bunch of innocent people. Okay? Now, to most Americans, he would be considered a radical antagonist.
Yeah.
But to the people who were part of his cult, he was a radical protagonist. So, this is the only scale that has this sort of mirror image where there's always somebody on the other side, and whether or not you're at the top or the bottom is totally subjective.
Mm-hmm. I can see like it's like a yin yang.
Yes.
It's a flip flop. Yeah. There's a mirror, a mirror image. Yep.
Now, I'll tell you, I have been a serious student of political science most of my life. And I didn't find this scale until this is the last one I found.
Hmm.
Because I thought about it and I thought about it and I said, wait a minute, there's a scale here, but it's weird. It's a mirror image.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have some guy, let's say he's an authentic Democrat, okay? And then he becomes a moderate Democrat. Then he becomes a centrist. Then he becomes a moderate Republican. You see, he's moving on this scale. Now, to the Democrats, this guy is going down the scale.
Yeah.
To the Republicans, he's coming up the scale.
Hmm.
So this guy, like for example, you had Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat representative for 4 terms from Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, she left the Democrat Party, and she has been very critical of them for very specific reasons. If you listen to what she says, it's not vague. She has a very definite opinion about this. So people would say, well, I guess she's a centrist now. Although the way she criticizes them, you might say, well, I wonder if she's a moderate, tepid Republican.
Yeah.
See? She hasn't said that. Or another example like that is my senator, Kirsten, trying to remember her last name. Kirsten, can't remember her last name.
Oh, yeah.
Has blonde hair. She, after the last election, became an independent.
Mm.
Now, she still votes mostly with the Democrats, but she's not a member of the Democrat Party anymore. She said, I don't like what's going on. I'm not going to be part of this.
Yeah.
So she is probably a moderate protagonist from the viewpoint of the Democrats because she votes with them most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
See? So a lot of them are not going to like her. She left the party.
Yeah.
Jeff Van Drew, another guy. He was a Democrat representative from New Jersey. He said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. He became a Republican. So whether or not he's an authentic Republican or a tepid Republican, I don't know. He's not my representative, so I never really conducted a study of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what this is about. And I think this is why the area is so confusing, mixed up. People don't know what to think, don't know what to say, don't know where am I, you know. And this covers the 7 possibilities.
Mm.
And again, it's not just for political parties. It could be anything. It could be like, for example, the Romantics and the Classics. If you study Western culture, you'll see that there was classical and romantic. They are 2 conflicting traditions. So Mozart is considered a classical composer. Brahms is a romantic composer. So you see, they're on different sides of this scale.
Yeah.
Only the dichotomy here is between classic and romantic. So if you look at the founding fathers of the United States, they were definitely classicists. They were not romantics.
Mm-mm.
Well, why do you think all these buildings in Washington look like they came from Greece or Rome?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that was from day one. They all studied, all the founding fathers, I shouldn't say all, there's probably a few exceptions, they all studied Greek and Latin. And they read the Greek philosophers, the Roman philosophers. That was their heritage. And all of that led them to founding the United States and eventually the Constitution.
Yeah. Oh,
Any questions?
no. Two quick points. You wanted to after you wanted to touch in on something, probably do a separate show or a separate
Yes.
episode
Yes.
on this. What was
Yes.
it? I was trying to go through the
The
email.
axioms.
That's it.
They're on the website. They're not in the book.
All right. Yeah.
Oh,
We'll do an episode on that.
yeah,
And
that'll
go through
fill
the
up a whole
axioms.
episode because there are 12 axioms.
Yeah.
And it's really a good thing to do after you go through the specifics because it's the whole subject gets
Yeah.
taken apart in a very analytical way. In other words, the axioms are very close to mathematical truths.
Okay.
And it kind of explains what this subject is, why it is natural law, how it is natural law, in what way is it natural law.
Yeah.
And after you go through all the axioms, you can see that. It's very clear. This is not about opinion. It's about these phenomena that exist the same way the three laws of motion exist.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have any visuals and stuff like that that you want to share and stuff like that, let me know. Send it to
Okay,
me.
well,
And,
if you want, you can go to my website, and they're there, and you could put them up on the screen if you wish.
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Cool. Cool.
I don't know that that's necessary because it's just, I mean, an axiom is a statement of fact. You know, it's like
Yeah.
one line, one or two sentences.
Yeah.
So the main thing is I would state it, I would read it, and then I would say, and this is what this is about. This is what it means. This is why it's that way. This is how the subject makes sense. Because the more you understand the axioms, the more Septemics makes sense to you as a comprehensive subject.
Yeah. Now, since we started, since your first episode, I sent you a copy of all the information for the first episode, the introduction to Septemics. And since we've been going through all these chapters and doing all the instructions and stuff like that, has anything changed? Has anything kind of like come up through your book? Has there been any
No.
outreaches from people, from readers and stuff going, hey, I'm implementing in this, or I found
Well, I get that from people all the time,
Yeah.
But because it's natural law, it's just there,
Yeah.
and I just saw it for what it was and wrote it down. So the subject is, you can come back in 1,000 years and the subject will be the same.
Yeah. Nothing's changed, man.
And it was the same thing. If you want to go back to ancient Greece or ancient Rome or ancient Persia and use it to analyze people, you can do that. It was just as true then as it is now, and will still be true when the human race becomes extinct.
Yeah.
Which will be a long time from now.
Yeah, it'd be a while. Yeah. We would hope. Yeah. So before we close up the so to speak, I wouldn't say closing the book on Septemics, but closing our instruction and everything that we went over so far, is there any takeaways that you would like to leave our audience?
Yeah, there's one sentence I'd like to say, which is that the data in this book are vital for every person and can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random.
Mm-hmm.
Most people sort of look at most of humanity and see it as either inexplicable or random.
Yeah.
You know, like guys who said, can't understand women. You know, now whether they're saying it's inexplicable or it's just random doesn't really matter. The truth is, if you have this data, you can understand them. You can
Yep.
analyze a woman across 35 axes and get a really precise knowledge of who she is, what she's about, and you can predict what she's going to do. So that is the main thing about this, that it is a tool of prediction.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'll see a guy, I'll see, this guy's at level 6 on the scale. I see a train wreck coming, I'm gone. You know, I'm not going to wait around and get run over by that train. Well, most people don't know that, and so some of them are going to get run over by that train.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Happens all the time. And that's why I say often, this book, if you actually study it and apply it, I can guarantee it will prevent catastrophes, dilemmas, bankruptcies, divorces, indictments, fistfights, etc., etc., etc. Because you can see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You can analyze it. You can look at the person and say, whoa, I'm not going to mess with this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. And the opposite is also true, where you can meet somebody and see, wow, this person is really upscale. The high on this scale and this scale. And this is an upscale person. This is somebody I want around me. So it enables you to pull the upscale people into your orbit and to push the downscale people out of your orbit,
Yeah. No.
because it gives you a way to determine, because none of this is opinion, and every person is at some level on every scale. It's not going to be that you meet Mary Lou and she's not on the scale of control. That's just a complete fantasy.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't understand the scale. Maybe you don't understand Mary Lou, but she's on there.
Yep.
Okay? And if you spend enough time observing her and studying the scale, you'll see, oh, now I see she's at level 5. That's why she acts that way.
Mm. Mm. Yep. Time to buy her some roses. Yeah. Man. Jim, thank you again for your time.
Okay, Paul. I'll see you next week.
You're very welcome, brother.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's special report from the seance and instruction in Septemics. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And where's my mouse? There we go. Cool. Y'all have a good one. See you next time.
Bye-bye.